Hi friend and welcome to my channel. Today, we discuss throughout history, especially in European monarchies, the obsession with maintaining pure bloodlines through strategic marriages within royal families often led to generations of inbreeding. This practice was thought to preserve political alliances and ensure legitimacy, but it came at great biological and psychological costs. Among the many tragic outcomes, one woman stands out as a striking example of the dangers of royal inbreeding: Mariana of Austria, and even more notably, Mariana of Austria, but none rival the case of the last Habsburg king of Spain's niece, Maria Theresa of Spain, or more closely, Charles II's own mother and aunt-in-one, Mariana of Austria. However, the woman historically considered as the most inbred genetically was Maria Theresa of Austria, the mother of Charles II of Spain. But the true peak of generational inbreeding manifested in Charles II, Spain's last Habsburg king 1661 to 1700, who was not a woman, but whose maternal lineage contains the most telling case of inbreeding's impact. Let's look closer at the royal woman whose life embodied these genetic consequences. Mariana of Austria 1630 to 1696. Mariana was both niece and wife to Philip IV of Spain. She was born into the Austrian Habsburg family, herself a product of close consanguineous unions, and then married her uncle to strengthen dynastic ties. Her inbreeding coefficient was already dangerously high, and this increased further when she bore Charles II. She was the daughter of Emperor Ferdinand III and Mariana of Spain, meaning her parents were first cousins and her mother was also the sister of her future husband. The FX Maria gave birth to Charles II, who had an inbreeding coefficient of 0.254, roughly the equivalent of being the child of a brother and sister. Though not a woman herself, Charles II's life was entirely shaped by the legacy of inbred royal women like Mariana. The tragic result included severe physical deformation to disabilities, inferiority, and inability to govern, and early death, leading to the end of the Spanish Habsburg dynasty. Other notable inbred royal women: Mariana of Austria 1610 to 1665, married to her first cousin and bore children into the Spanish line. Her family tree was tangled with recurring names. Juana la Loca, Joanna the Mad. Her erratic behavior has also been partly attributed to the compounded inbreeding of the Trastamara and Habsburg lines. Princess Victoria Melita of Edinburgh, though not severely affected herself, she descended from generations of intermarried rivals, including Queen Victoria's children marrying into multiple European royal houses, including the Romanovs and Hohenzollerns. Genetic consequences of inbreeding. In royal women in these dynasties often had fewer children who survived, miscarriages were common, and infant mortality soared. The genetic pool, increasingly limited, resulted in recurring deformities such as mandibular prognathism, Habsburg jaw, cognitive decline, epilepsy, seen in Queen Victoria's descendants. These women bore the weight of dynastic expectation, while also being victims of a dangerous tradition designed to uphold royal purity at the cost of health and sanity. In conclusion, while Charles II is often cited as the most inbred monarch, it was the royal women like Mariana of Austria who lived through and perpetuated the generational damage of obsessive dynastic inbreeding. Their lives and legacies serve as stark reminders of how political ambition can warp both bloodlines and human lives. The tragic legacy of inbreeding in royal families didn't end with the Spanish Habsburgs. Across Europe and beyond, royal women, often pawns in dynastic chess games, were wed to close relatives with little concern for the biological consequences. The deeper we explore history, the more we uncover a pattern of suffering, both physical and psychological, among these and Oblewome. Queen Victoria's descendants, and the curse of hemophilia, not herself a victim of extreme inbreeding. Queen Victoria of the United Kingdom 1819 to 1901 became a genetic carrier of hemophilia, a bleeding disorder that spread disastrously through Europe's royal houses. Because her children married into various European dynasties, Russia, Germany, Spain, this disease reached royal women like Princess Alice of the United Kingdom, passed the gene to her daughter Alexandra, Empress Alexandra Feodorovna of Russia married Tsar Nicholas II and passed hemophilia to their only son, Alexei. The desperation to cure him eventually led the family to Rasputin, which had far-reaching consequences in the fall of the Roman. Though hemophilia is an X-linked recessive disorder and not caused by inbreeding per se, the tight intermarriages between royal families helped ensure its survival and spread across generations. Egyptian royalty, the ancient roots of inbreeding long before European dynasties. Ancient Egyptian pharaohs, including powerful queens like Cleopatra VII, were products of extensive sibling marriage. Cleopatra's family, the Ptolemies, routinely married brothers to sisters to maintain a divine bloodline. Cleopatra herself likely married her brothers Ptolemy the 13th and Ptolemy the 14th, although she took Julius Caesar and Mark Antony as consorts for political leverage. While historical records don't show the same level of visible deformities as the Habsburgs, the practice still had cumulative effects, especially with stillbirths and fragile dynasties vulnerable to collapse. Royal women as victims of the system. In many ways, royal women were doubly cursed. Not only were they expected to barriers to secure dynasties, but they were forced into genetically dangerous unions. The health of their children, often malformed or sickly, was blamed on them, rather than on the centuries of inbreeding that created such perilous genetic combinations. Some women attempted to resist the tradition, but rarely succeeded. Even Marie Antoinette, an Austrian archduchess and later Queen of France, came from deeply intermarried Habsburg blood. Though not as inbred as earlier generations, she was still tied to the same legacy of closed familial lines. Her ill-fated children, including Louis XVII, who died in prison, were also victims of weak genetics, exacerbated by harsh historical circumstances, decline and fall. When bloodlines turn to poison, downfall of many royal dynasties can be linked directly to the collapse in physical and mental health of their monarchs, much of it caused by inbreeding. The Habsburg dynasty in Spain ended with Charles II's death in 1700, childless and incapacitated. The Romanovs, weakened by internal illness and external revolution, fell in 1917. The Egyptian Ptolemies, notorious for incestuous marriage, collapsed into civil war and Roman conquest. Modern genetic understanding. Genetic science has confirmed what history only hinted at. Close-skin marriages dramatically increase the risk of congenital disabilities, infertility, and hereditary disease. Inbreeding coefficients used by modern geneticists like the 0.25 of Charles II show just how far dynastic ambition can push human biology to its breaking point. Final thought: this story remembers kings and emperors, but it often forgets the queens and princesses who suffered in silence. These women, trapped in a gilded genetic cage, were expected to be symbols of strength while slowly breaking under the burden of inherited fragility. Their legacies